decorations up all over New York City as you take a live look at one of the, that's actually always out there every year, and look forward to that, across from Radio City. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Monday morning, the first week of December. Hopefully you had a great weekend. I'm Heather Childers. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's get straight to our top story, though. President Trump and GOP lawmakers unleashing on the FBI, demanding answers after a Fox News exclusive reveals a tainted top agent sent anti-Trump text messages. Griff Jenkins joins us now in our nation's capital with some new details that are unfolding or have unfolded overnight. Good morning, Griff. What is the latest?
That's right. Good morning, Heather. In case you were busy shopping or away and missed it, the president unleashed a Twitter storm over the weekend, heavily criticizing the FBI, writing after years of Comey with the phony and dishonest Clinton investigation and more, running the FBI, ruining the FBI and its reputation is in tatters, worst in history. But fear not, we will bring it back to greatness. The tweet drawing immediate reaction from former Attorney General Eric Holder, who said the FBI is in tatters. No, the only thing in tatters is a president's respect for the rule of law. The dedicated men and women of FBI deserve better. And former acting Attorney General Sally Yates saying, nope, not letting this go. The FBI's reputation is not in tatters. It's composed of the same dedicated men and women who have always worked there and who do a great apolitical job. You'll find integrity and honesty at FBI headquarters and not at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now. This comes as Fox News' exclusive reporting about a former deputy director of the FBI for counterintelligence being removed from special counsel Robert Mueller's investigative team for exchanging anti-Trump text with a colleague. That agent, Peter Strzok, had also worked on Hillary Clinton's email scandal investigation, and now lawmakers like Congressman Mike McCall want to know more.
I think the more disturbing report I heard come out was that one of the FBI agents assigned to the Mueller investigation was reassigned because of his political views. The fact that this was one of the lead agents on the Hillary Clinton email investigation, if true, I think is very disturbing and possibly could call for a reopening of that investigation.
So don't be surprised, Heather, if we have more calls from members of Congress for testimony. We do know that the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein is expected to testify before the House Judiciary Committee next week.
Yeah, and some questions involving him as well. Griff, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it as always. Well, in the meantime, Trump's former national security advisor facing the consequences for lying to the FBI as he cooperates with the Russia investigation. Congressman Darrell Issa says that Mike Flynn's case reminds us that at least sometimes people are held accountable for lying, and that this is exactly why Hillary Clinton's case should be reopened.
It's a good reminder that at least sometimes when you lie to law enforcement, you're held accountable. Obviously, Hillary Clinton was not held accountable for lying. Lois Lerner was not held accountable for lying. It's that double standard calls into question the investigation and the decisions by former Director Comey as to whether Hillary Clinton committed crimes, which I believe she did, and should be prosecuted for them. Obviously, Director Comey was not independent. The deputy was not independent. These kinds of things would cause anyone to say, for public confidence alone, that investigation should be reopened and properly analyzed for whether or not she should have been charged with the crime, at least as to those classified documents that she knowingly left federal service with in her possession.
And then in other news, the clock is ticking as the House and the Senate face two major deadlines: passing historic tax reform and avoiding a government shutdown. Kelly Wright is here live for us with the mad dash to get both done. Kelly, can they do it?
Well, that remains to be seen. Lawmakers return to Capitol Hill, as you know, today with two specific goals on their agenda: to approve a spending bill to keep the government from shutting down after Friday, and the Republican-led House and Senate must hash out differences in their tax reform bills during conference before sending a final draft to President Trump before Christmas. Now, the House and Senate tax reform bills have some big differences. Among them, the Senate bill cuts individual taxes only through 2025, plus repeals the individual mandate that Americans must buy health insurance under Obamacare. But the House and Senate bills each reduce the corporate tax rate from 35 to 20% and eliminate state and local tax deductions. Democrats argue that giving huge tax cuts to business is not necessarily a sure win for workers.
Why not put a requirement in that these companies would actually invest some of that money in training their workforce, giving them skills they need to compete, as opposed to what I'm afraid is that we will see the vast majority of these funds come back and be used for share buyback and dividends.
Democrats, along with some Republicans, are also concerned about the elimination of state and local tax deductions in high tax states, and that could cause Senator Susan Collins to vote against the final version of the bill.
No, I mean, obviously, I want to see what comes out. I believe that the amendments that I added on medical expense deductions, on property tax deductions, on helping retirement security for public employees improve the bill.
And on that government shutdown that we were talking about, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is confident Congress will pass a temporary spending bill before the government runs out of money on Friday. That's even if some Democrats withhold votes unless they keep the immigration program known as DACA. President Trump obviously weighing in on this, saying he wants to see the tax reform plan work because he says it's a step in the right direction to move America first. Heather?
But we're going to hash it out a little bit more later in the show. Thank you so much, Kelly. Appreciate the details. Well, Democrats, meantime, still refusing to get on board with tax reform, saying that they can't support a proposal that raises the deficit. But Kira Davis, senior contributor at redstate.com, points out that Democrats didn't seem to have a problem when former President Obama was driving up the national debt.
Just can't help but laugh because every time a Republican comes into office and proposes a tax cut, suddenly Democrats care about the debt.
Well, I didn't say I cared about the debt. I said Republicans care about the debt.
I bet you didn't care about the debt when Obama was president and he was driving it way up. I mean, listen to what we're talking about. Forget about... Look, I am the middle class. I am the middle class. Mom, 2 kids, middle class, suburban America. And forget about class for a second and just consider what we're talking about. We're talking about whether or not we're going to let people keep their own money. So whether or not you're rich or whether you're poor, we're talking about what the government has the right, if the government has the right to what you earn. We're talking about letting someone keep what they've earned.
Seems like that's reasonable. Well, let's have an update now to this story. Unfortunately, we didn't want to end this way. A man charged in connection with the death of a 3-year-old girl will face a judge today. Earl Kimmery, the live-in boyfriend of Mariah Wood's mother, is accused of hiding the toddler's body in a creek about 25 miles from her North Carolina home. The 32-year-old has a lengthy criminal history, including larceny and assault charges. Mariah, as you know, was reported missing 1 week ago, and Kimmery claims to have been the last person to see her before she disappeared from her room. That was around midnight. Well, it's not known how the girl died or who is responsible for her death, but they do believe that he knows something about it. Well, just hours from now, President Trump will be landing in Utah to announce some major changes to several national monuments. He is expected to reduce the size of the 1.3 million-acre Bears Ears National Monument by 85% and shrink the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. And the order will lift bans that were put in place by former President Obama during the final days of his administration. That stopped Utah's efforts to use much of that land to boost energy production. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell now easing his stance on Alabama GOP Senate candidate Roy Moore. And McConnell had called out Moore he had called him to quit, or he had called on him to quit the race amid sexual misconduct accusations, saying that he believed the accusers. But now he says that it's up to the voters.
Do you believe that Judge Moore should be in the Senate?
I'm going to let the people of Alabama make the call. The election's been going on a long time. There's been a lot of discussion about it. They're going to make the decision a week from Tuesday.
McConnell says the Ethics Committee will have to consider the matters litigated during the campaign if Moore wins next week's election, and we will have that for you, of course. Well, the NFL's multi-million-dollar, what some are calling bribe to stop players from protesting the anthem is backfiring. At least 25 players either sitting, kneeling, or raising a fist. And the NFL agreeing to send $89 million to social justice causes last week in hopes of stopping the behavior. Meanwhile, New York Giants head coach Ben McAdoo's days are numbered. ESPN reporting that he could be fired today after another loss and for benching two-time Super Bowl MVP quarterback Eli Manning. And the Patriots may be without star tight end Rob Gronkowski after this dirty hit on Buffalo Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White. Gronk apologizing, though, after the game.
I don't really believe in type of shots like that. Just want to apologize to Tre'Davious White.
White suffered a concussion. Gronk could be hit with a suspension. Well, the time now is about 11 minutes after the top of the hour, and the governor of Puerto Rico got plenty of attention by attacking President Trump in the days after Hurricane Maria.
We are dying, and you are killing us with the inefficiency.
He demanded billions of taxpayer dollars for relief, or she did. So how does she explain the $100 million that she's giving out in Christmas bonuses? Plus, see you in court. President Trump upping the ante in the ABC reporter behind the botched Russia report, the consequences that he's demanding for fake news. And he's been honored by... Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. President Trump demanding a lawsuit against ABC News over Brian Ross's botched Russia report. Our commander-in-chief unleashing on Twitter saying this, quote, people who lost money when the stock market went down 350 points based on the false and dishonest reporting of Brian Ross of ABC News. He has been suspended, should consider hiring a lawyer and suing ABC for the damages this bad reporting has caused, many millions of dollars. Ross first said that Michael Flynn was preparing to testify that President Trump told him to contact Russians while he was still a candidate, which turned out to be false. Well, the acquittal of an illegal immigrant and the death of Kate Steinle igniting a new push to pass Kate's Law, which has been sitting in the Senate for 5 months. Garcia Zarata, a convicted felon deported 5 times, was cleared of murder and manslaughter. And the jury deciding that he accidentally shot Steinle on a San Francisco pier in 2015. Congressman Michael McCall says something has to change.
This is one of the most tragic things. And then to see a San Francisco jury acquit this killer of the charges is even more tragic for the family. And I think for the nation, it signals a broader problem in our failed immigration policies. These sanctuary cities that give, those who come in the country illegally, who are criminals, safe haven in cities like San Francisco. It is a public threat, and it needs to change. We passed Kate's Law in the House. I would hope the Senate would do the same. We passed a No Sanctuary for Criminals Act, which is sitting in the Senate. These things could be quickly moved and signed by the president.
Well, Kate's Law would raise the maximum prison sentence for illegal immigrants caught re-entering the U.S. following deportations. And do you remember when officials in Puerto Rico slammed President Trump for not providing enough hurricane relief?
We are dying, and you are killing us with the inefficiency.
Well, now, according to Bloomberg, Puerto Rico's governor is handing out more than $100 million in Christmas bonuses to government employees, despite asking federal taxpayers to shell out $94 billion for recovery efforts. It doesn't make any sense. 1/3 of the territory, which is already $70 billion in debt, 1/3 of it is still without power, and more than 2 months after the storms. President Trump is expected to make a major announcement this week, possibly recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The decision could also lead to a big move for the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to the Holy City. Brian Yennis has more on what the decision could mean.
President Trump not yet making a decision on a campaign promise to move the American embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
Moving the embassy has the potential to spark protests across the Middle East and also potentially weaken an Arab-Israeli peace push led by the president's son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner.
What I'll say is that the president's going to make his decision, and
he hasn't made his decision?
He's still looking at a lot of different facts, and that when he makes his decision, he'll be the one to want to tell you, not me. So he'll make sure he does that at the right time.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is warning that recognizing the holy city as the Israeli capital or moving the embassy will jeopardize peace efforts. The Palestinians also claim Jerusalem as part of their own future state. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster thinks it can benefit both sides.
There are options involving the move of an embassy at some point in the future, which I think could be used to gain momentum toward a peace agreement. And a solution that works both for Israelis and for Palestinians.
All presidents since Bill Clinton have signed a waiver saying the status of the holy city should be determined by the Israelis and Palestinians. President Trump signed the waiver in June, but is currently weighing his options on how to proceed. He's expected to make a decision this week. In New York City, Brian Yennis, Fox News.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes after the top of the hour, and a Fox News alert for you: preparing for war. The U.S. carrying out the largest military drill of its kind as the Trump administration puts some new pressure on North Korea.
If necessary, the president and the United States will have to take care of it.
So how will North Korea respond? We're live with the latest. And just when you thought they were gone for good, could the Clintons be attempting a 2018 political comeback? Carly Shimkus is here with the new room. Welcome back. MSNBC anchor Joy Reid apologizing this morning for a series of controversial blog posts containing offensive remarks. And the nearly decade-old post resurfacing after a Twitter thread went viral. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 is here with the outrage online. So I was watching some of this unfold over the weekend. People pretty fired up.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Reid made those controversial blog posts in 2007 to 2009. In them, she made repeated homophobic remarks against Florida Congressman Charlie Crist, who is heterosexual. Now, Reid was pushing an unsubstantiated conspiracy theory that Reid is a gay man who married a woman for political gain. Now, a Twitter user named Jamie Maz broke this story, saying from 2007 to 2009, Joy Reid authored a dozen homophobic posts, not only attempting to out Charlie Crist as gay, she attacked and mocked him for being so. Well, Joy Reid has apologized in a statement to Fox News, saying, as someone who is not a member of the LGBT community, I regret the way I addressed the complex issue of the closet and speculation on the person's sexual orientation with a mocking tone and sarcasm. It was insensitive, tone deaf, and dumb. As you mentioned, Heather, social media sounding off. Julie says no justification for that. Another Twitter user says MSNBC should fire Joy Reid. And still one more tweet called her apology insincere. Now, Congressman Crist, he has spoken out about this. He has accepted her apology.
All right, so let's talk about Chelsea Clinton. There was this article in Politico pushing for her to run for Arkansas Senate. Republicans think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I guess so. So in this Politico article that's getting a lot of attention, it says she has the Clinton name, but little of the Clinton baggage. She wouldn't hurt for name recognition or campaign cash. She is an Arkansas native, even though she hasn't lived there since she was 12. So kind of weighing the pros and cons. One Twitter user says, you know, I just don't think this would turn out the way they thought it would. And so there's a whole lot of social media reaction to this. Chelsea Clinton did say that if anybody drops out or anything changes, she might consider running. She made that comment, I think, in March. So we might see a political future for her still to come.
Sounds like a politician anyway. Well, so astronauts making pizza in space. How in the world?
How cool is this? So an Italian astronaut, Paolo Nespoli, tweeted out this video that shows astronauts aboard the International Space Station making out of this world pizza, really. How cool is this? They launched those ingredients right up after he said that he missed pizza while he was in space. So there you have it. They made it.
Yes, pepperoni.
As for how it tastes, though, he said it was surprisingly delicious.
Ah, it was out of this world.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Carly.
Thanks a lot.
Well, the time now is about 27 minutes after the top of the hour, and Democrats want you to believe that America is more divided than ever, and they like it that way, according to critics. It is just an act, or is it just an act to recapture the power, or are they really fighting for you? Our political panel on deck to debate that up next. And a college using taxpayer dollars to make sure that your kids understand how to check their white privilege. The lesson in oppression, sparking outrage.
What a wonderful world this would be.
Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. It's 4:30 in the morning here on the East Coast. This Fox News alert for you now. President Trump will handle it. That stern warning coming from top U.S. officials as North Korea sends new threats of nuclear war. Greg Palcott joins us now from London with the latest. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Heather. That's right. Tough talk coming from the Trump administration about North Korea, coming specifically from National Security Advisor General H.R. McMaster. Speaking to Fox News on Sunday, he said, in fact, that the Trump administration will deal with any issues coming from Pyongyang. Take a listen.
If necessary, the president and the United States will have to take care of it, because he said he's not going to allow this murderous rogue regime to threaten the United States.
This all comes as the U.S. and South Korea launch huge joint aerial military drills starting today, going through all this week. Some 230 aircraft involved, including stealth aircraft, as well as 12,000 U.S. service members, both Marine and Navy. They're being deployed from 8 different bases in the region. Now, all of this is annual, pre-planned, but it does come in the wake of last week's launching of an ICBM by North Korea, the longest range, most powerful ever, capable, according to experts that we spoke with, of hitting all of the U.S. mainland with a nuclear payload, potentially. The regime of Kim Jong-un, following that, said that they had completed their rocket and nuclear arsenal. As for these exercises over the weekend, Pyongyang state media saying that all of this pushes the Korean Peninsula to the brink of nuclear war, and just for good measure, they branded President Trump insane. A couple more comments from General McMaster, Heather, also telling Fox that the president has told his team to move as quickly as possible to deal with the situation. Very fast-moving story. Back to you.
Yeah, someone needs to deal with it. Greg Palcott live for us. Thank you, Greg. Now to another Fox News alert, this time involving Germany. Germany warning of a massive danger as brainwashed ISIS women and children return home from Syria. The government seeing an increase of citizens as the terror group's stronghold in the Middle East falls. Germany also hoping to prevent attacks by offering nearly $4,000 to migrants to go back home. There are about 115,000 rejected asylum seekers in the country, but many cannot be deported for humanitarian reasons. Well, the parents of the suspected Tampa serial killer breaking their silence. They say that they are devastated about his arrest and call his actions, quote, out of character.
I prayed for those families when it first started. And then when they arrest my son, devastation, because I love my son.
We're going to lean on our faith as we go through this ordeal. And we're going to allow God to be God.
24-year-old Howard Donaldson arrested by Tampa authorities at a McDonald's near the Symoné Heights neighborhood where 4 people were shot and killed over 2 months. Donaldson faces 4 counts of first-degree murder, and authorities are pushing for the death penalty. The motive, still a mystery. Well, a Wall Street executive killed in a brutal shark attack while at a popular tourist location. Rohina Bandari and 19 other people, they were diving off the coast of Cocos Island National Park when a tiger shark swam by. Well, they had just surfaced when the shark began attacking her legs. And the guide of their group was also bitten, but is in stable condition, we're told. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Bandari was a senior director at W.L. Ross & Company. That's a firm founded by Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. And the VA under fire again, this time for hiring doctors that put our nation's heroes at risk. The USA Today finding that an Iowa City hospital hired a doctor with a revoked license last year who left a patient paralyzed and then another dying after surgery in Wyoming. That doctor has resigned. Now, the same report found that hospitals in Oklahoma and Louisiana hired workers with sexual misconduct sanctions and felony convictions. The VA says that they are now taking a closer look at all the past hires, I bet. Speaking of bets, all bets are off in Washington today. The Supreme Court set to hear a case that could legalize sports gambling nationwide. Right now, the only state that allows it is Nevada. New Jersey voters approved sports gambling in 2011, but several pro leagues sued to stop it. An estimated $150 billion are wagered on sports illegally each year. Well, it is back to work for Congress this week, ready to hit the ground running to meet two key deadlines, fulfilling President Trump's tax reform promise before Christmas and averting a government shutdown. So, can they get it done? Here to debate, media D.C. political analyst Ron Meyer and Democratic strategist Taryn Rosencrantz. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having us, Heather.
All right, so let's begin by taking a look at some of the differences with the GOP tax bills. First in the House, I'm not going to read through all of these for you, but it begins by preserving the ACA individual mandate, that's Obamacare, repeals the individual mandate, the Senate. And then the House, permanent corporate and individual taxes, the Senate, individual cuts expiring in 2025. The corporate, though, is permanent. And then you have the House with the estate tax eliminated by 2024. The Senate, the estate tax is limited but not entirely repealed. And then, of course, the child tax credit up to $1,600. The Senate child tax credit up to $2,000. And then you have mortgage interest deduction reduced in the House, the Senate, the mortgage interest deduction, the same 7 tax brackets, topping the rate out at 38.5% for the corporate and then 20% starting in 2019. I actually did read all of them for you there. So I'll start with you, Taryn. What do you think is the most significant difference?
Well, I think the most significant difference and really the problem here is what happened with the Senate vote. You're talking about things that were written in the margins, with handwritten in the margins, and in the middle of the dark of the night. It adds more trillions to our debt, and it obviously is a bigger concern. I mean, fundamentally, this tax reform bill raises taxes, not cuts taxes, for 2 out of 3 hardworking Americans, which I'm defining as hardworking Americans as really that middle class. So in order to be able to avoid this government shutdown and make sure that we're able to kind of protect the middle class that we're having here, we really are going to have to kind of go back and expose what's happening here and what happened really in that Senate bill in the dark of night.
All right, so let's get to Ron. Ron, do you disagree?
Well, yeah, I mean, Hillary Clinton ran on raising taxes on the same people and on raising spending to the point of where there'd be higher deficits. I mean, listen, this is the issue, is that there is a real point here, is that the Senate bill does raise taxes on tens of millions of Americans. A Republican bill should raise taxes on no one. The House bill is a little bit better, but this problem can be easily fixed. Listen, we can still have a large corporate tax cut and not have the biggest ever, but still have a pretty big one, and then make sure every individual person gets a tax cut. The way you do that is by making sure the state and local deduction stays there in some form. Even if you cap it at $15,000 or $12,000, make sure it's there. Right now, I have a 9-month-old, and I live in suburban America, very middle class. I'm getting a tax cut. I know people, tons of people in my neighborhood are getting, or not tax cuts, tax increases. Tons of people in my neighborhood are getting tax increases from the Senate bill, if that's the one that passes. So the House bill needs to be the one to be advanced, and then the SALT deduction needs to be put in there in its entirety. It can be capped, but that's the way you fix this. And then the corporate rate could be 23%. Well, the corporate rate could be 23%, which is still a gigantic cut. And so this is what I'm saying, is that I think that we give the Democrats too many talking points like the ones you just heard from my colleague, because we do see large corporate deductions, and we need to get the individual rates down. Make sure every single American gets a tax cut.
Taryn, and isn't it, yes. I'm not quite sure what the word is, but Democrats now they're concerned so much about the debt, but they weren't exactly concerned about the debt before.
Well, I think if we're going to talk about tax reform, right, and we're going to really have this discussion, we're going to have to be concerned about the debt. I mean, we're talking about adding trillions to the debt while also unenrolling people from the mandate, right, from health insurance. So you're talking about adding millions to the rolls of the uninsured. So you're bringing them back on, right, which we're inevitably going to have to pay for anyway through emergency rooms and other things. You're talking about tax increases, tax hikes on middle-class, hardworking Americans. You're talking about gutting public education. I mean, this bill is just, and it's completely, to your point, it is so extreme that there is nothing that they can really defend. There is literally a provision for private jet owners, which I know is not me, it's not my neighbors, it's not the folks that we're trying to care about here. And if we're going to have real tax reforms, there cannot be provisions for private jet ownership as the bigger deal here. We got to have real middle-class reform.
Yeah, right. Let me get to Ron, and Ron, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so, well, here's what, I mean, the Democrats can't just be talking about deficits and debt when Republican plans are the ones that are causing it by giving people their money back. Power. Right, and so we need, if we want to be serious about deficits, that's what we should be doing. But Republicans are saying we're going to cut taxes now, and then when we're talking about the budget next year, we're going to look at spending reductions to create a sustainable government long term. But I think what people want, if you talk to normal, everyday people, they think they should keep more of their money, and they want to see the economy grow faster, and they want to see the government live within their means. They don't want to see government services necessarily slashed, but they want to see sustainable government.
And when it comes to Obamacare, which Taryn was talking about, that also includes people choosing not to be covered, choosing not to be covered.
Yeah, but forcing people to buy health care, I mean, that's not exactly charity by the government, is it? Saying, it's not.
Let's move on to this next topic, though. Quickly, I want to get you both to respond to this. Democrats thriving to keep Americans divided, dependent, and angry on purpose. Now, there was this op-ed that was written, and it says, this is a quote, I'll get you a response. Americans who see themselves as victims of American society are likely to vote Democrat. Therefore, the Democratic Party and its supportive media cultivate victimhood among almost all Americans who are not white and male. Taryn?
Oh, I think this is just a shameful op-ed. This is exactly what's continuing to divide America. You know, as a mom, as a family, as a hardworking American, I can tell you the biggest thing that people want right now is not a divided nation. We had a foreign government interfere in our elections to try to divide us. We need to rise above that, and as Americans come together, and I think there is nobody who's rooting more for that right now than the Democratic Party. But we need to look beyond party in general. Every American needs to be striving to make sure that we're having real conversations, that we're not having this kind of divisive language, which I think is just, you know, it's truly tearing us apart. And America, if we want to make it great and strong, we need to work together to do that.
Absolutely. She just said make America great. Ron, what do you think?
Yeah, hey, well, I actually, you know, I definitely want to agree some point with that. I think we could build on that spirit of bipartisanship, but there is some truth that Democrats and, frankly, leadership, I think, on both sides of the aisle, if you look in Congress, that does try to play cynical politics. And there's no doubt that there's some cynical politics being played right now with the tax reform bill and some others. But the truth is we do need to have meaningful conversations, have real conversations with people that disagree with you. And what you'll find out is that we're all human and that we all really usually want what's better for this country. And that's really, I mean, when we talk about cynical politics, we can get beyond that if we're having real conversations. The holiday season coming up right now is a perfect time to do that. Have a conversation with people that you agree with and be happy.
You talk about it?
Yes, but be respectful, be loving, be human.
All right. Well, I agree. Ron and Taryn, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Appreciate your perspectives. Thank you. Well, the time now is about 15 minutes until the top of the hour, and a massive merger between CVS and Aetna in a deal that may reshape the future of America's health industry. What it means for you. And our heroes have put their lives on the line, making the ultimate sacrifice for this country. But apparently it's the man who takes